Hey everybody, happy Valentine's Day. We know you have less important things to be doing right now, so we appreciate you sticking with us here on this day that even married people hate. Speaking of married, I'm Emerson Lotzia. Reid is not married, hopefully soon, because I love weddings. This is The Sweat, and would you be so kind, please, as to tell everyone at home what we have coming up on the program?
Absolutely. Just put me on the spot there. Don't mind if I do. We'll get you set for a jam-packed night on the ice. We'll take an early look at some World Series odds, plus the impact that Mother Nature will have on your golf lineups.
Yes, Reid, our golf analyst, as well as a host today. Each segment we'll be handing out roses to the analyst who shines the brightest and wins us over. So let's get this party started with some NBA Chaser Fade. Here is our panel, three guys for a three-game slate. DK Live's Julian Edlow, Pierce Dietrich, and Gary Thorne.
How's it going, guys?
Great.
Great. Good. Great. Grand. In case you
Wonderful.
missed it, Anthony Davis delivered his worst performance of the season on Tuesday. A very disappointing 17 DK points, something Emerson would do in his rec league. Not ideal for anyone who dropped more than $10,000 to roster him. Jules, chase or fade the Brow goes wild tonight against the Thunder, and for only $9,000.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to chase Anthony Davis for GPPs here and fade him for cash. It's a three-game slate, and Anthony Davis is the fifth most expensive player. I can't remember the last time Anthony Davis was the fifth most expensive player on an 11 or 12-game slate. So there's certainly value here. DraftKings is definitely compensating for that dud that he had against Orlando. 1 for 9 from the field, 24 minutes. He looked very disinterested in any contact, anything that could get him injured. But the two games before that, he was good in limited minutes, 51 DraftKings points in each one. So if the order of these games was mixed up, and maybe that 17 DK point game came in between two 51 DK point games, there would be a lot more interest in Davis tonight. But given what we saw from him last game, I don't think we can trust him in cash. But if you're in a tournament, he's so much cheaper than guys like Westbrook and Paul George. I think you can pivot off of one of them to a guy like Davis and maybe pay up somewhere else a little bit more.
Yeah, Gary, OKC tonight, $9,000, pretty cheap for one of the best players, arguably the number one guy in the MVP race here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely enticing to see Anthony Davis ever priced below 5 digits. But as Julian was sort of alluding to, it's not even just the minutes drop-off we've seen from Davis. His role just looks entirely different on the court since he's come back. His usage rate in these 3 games has only been 23.4%. He's only averaging 13.9 field goal attempts per 36 minutes. It's usually someone up around 20 per 36 minutes. So I'm probably just going to avoid. I think if you do want to get in the conversation of GPP versus 50-50, obviously he's not a cash game play tonight, but I'm going to fade that he goes off. I just don't think he's going to be on the court enough, and he hasn't looked engaged when he has been on the court.
Pierce, AD, 9,000. Where are you going with this one?
Well, first off, as a married man, let me give you a little bit of lady advice here.
Oh, go ahead.
Don't buy heart-shaped pizzas. You would think that they would be a real winner, but apparently women don't like it. So,
Are you speaking from experience here?
Yes, about 3 or 4 times I had to get burned by that.
3 or 4 times.
I think it's just kind of a waste of money thing.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, with Anthony Davis, I always fade Anthony Davis. Nothing new here. You got to fade him. And I know this line looks like it's going to be a close game. They're only projected to lose by 4 points. So if it's a close game, you got to believe that Anthony Davis is going to be out there. But he doesn't want to play. The team doesn't want to risk him being out there. If the game gets out of hand, he's going to be quickly pulled out, or they're going to take some of his minutes away. He doesn't have the ceiling when he doesn't have the minutes, and just because the line's close, don't be fooled. The line against the Magic was 4.5. They were favored by 4.5. They lost by 30 points.
That's a lot.
Whoa.
That's a lot of points.
30 is a lot.
Okay. Nikola Vucevic has hit the 10K mark for the first time this season. Pierce, please chase or fade. He deserves this price tag when he faces the Hornets.
Kind of surprised that this is the first time that he's hit 10K. He definitely deserves it. He's been putting together a really good season. He's really efficient. He just doesn't get a lot of volume because the Magic plays so slow, but they've been putting a lot of points on the board. I mentioned this the other night. They play great defense, but they're scoring points as well. It's a pretty good matchup against the Hornets. I know Cody Zeller's back, but they defensively at the center position, they're not playing any better when they have Biyombo and Willie Hernangomez back there. The thing that worries me, though, if you look at the Hornets versus the Magic, the Hornets blew the Magic out twice this season already. I know you're going all the way back to October for one of those games, but this is even worse. The Hornets have beat the Magic 13 games in a row, 20 of the last 25. that seems like a pretty big trend to me. That worries me with these Magic players getting smoked.
Gary, and what do you think? He hit north of 56 DK fantasy points on Tuesday night at the Pelicans.
Yeah, I'm going to chase that he's earned this. I'm not necessarily chasing that I want to use him tonight, but, he's got a double-double in 8 of his last 9 games. He's reached 50 DKFP 4 of those 8 times. He's definitely deserving of this price tag, and especially on the slate. Let's not ignore the fact that the slate has a ton to do with why he's priced the way he is. We already talked about Anthony Davis just being $9,000. Someone's got to be $10,000 on this slate aside from Paul George and Russell Westbrook, so you take the next guy in line in terms of durability and consistency from a fantasy perspective so far this season, it's Nikola Vucevic. So, yeah, I completely think he has earned this. And look, Charlotte's given up over 116 points per 100 possessions their last 5 games. They've been awful defensively. So you'd have to think he's able to take advantage of that.
Are you going to be taking advantage of this, Jules?
No, I'll fade that Vucevic is worth this, actually. Yes, he had 56 DraftKings points in his last game, but it came in a really good matchup against New Orleans in that blowout. If you're costing 10K, that means that reaching value for you is going to be 50 DK points. And in the 4 games prior to that game against New Orleans, Vucevic didn't even reach that mark. He was 8,800 a couple of games ago. So I think, kind of like Garion touched on, this is just, hey, Anthony Davis is so cheap now, we need to make another player on a 3-game slate more expensive, and Vucevic just was the guy that became more expensive. So I actually don't think he's going to be worth this. He's going to be a fine play. He should have a good game. He has averaged just 31 DraftKings points in his 2 games against Charlotte this season, but like Pierce mentioned a little bit, Charlotte's a little bit thinner up front, so a little bit easier spot, but I'll fade that he's worth his salary. And I will say that the Orlando Magic will end their 13-game losing streak to the Charlotte Hornets tonight.
Okay, wonderful. Real quick, Julian, a question on Facebook. Mark McBride asks, Julius Randle and Okafor, are they good picks tonight?
Probably not with Anthony Davis in the mix, but he's playing so few minutes. Between the two, I guess I like Randle a little bit more, but I would probably stay away from them.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, very nice, Jules. Right on the spot there. On Tuesday, Trae Young had his first 50-plus DK point game since November, really. So chase or fade, this man goes for 50 again tonight against the Knicks. Garion, what do you think?
My head says no, but you know what? Screw it. Let's chase this. Trae Young's been phenomenal the last 10 games or so. He actually leads the Eastern Conference in potential assists in that span of time, averaging 16 per game. He's also one of just 3 players averaging more than 6 seconds per touch in that span. So generally speaking, the ball is in his hands. And we also saw something maybe even more important than the 50 DKFP in that contest was he played 38 minutes. And the big missing common denominator in that game for what's been the entirety of the Hawks season is Jeremy Lin wasn't on the team. It was the first game he was with Toronto. So if that's going to be how they kind of compensate for not having a true backup point guard or an established backup point guard, just playing Trae Young 36 minutes a night, I think he can get there against the Knicks.
At first, I thought Garion was going to serenade us with some R&B right there. But, Jules, what do you think about Trae Young here?
I'll continue to play the Grinch. I'm taking the under here. Look, Trae Young is playing really well lately. He had a great game. But as you mentioned, he hasn't done this in so long. It's just too high of a number for him. He is come up to $8,100. I think he actually, unlike Vucevic, is a guy that's worth his salary now. But that puts him at around 40 to 45 DK points. I know that's very close to 50, but I just think he'll reach value, maybe come up 10 short here. In his 3 games against the Knicks this season, I know Lin was around at this point, but he only averages 32 DraftKings points in 3 outings against the Knicks. So even though it's a little bit better of a situation, the way he's been playing and with Lin out of the picture, the numbers just say this is a little bit too high for me to go.
So, Pierce, you're fading heart-shaped pizzas and AD. What about Trae Young tonight?
I'm going to chase. Originally, I was going to fade, but it looks like Jalen Adams is not going to play tonight, so that means you can punch Trae Young in for 38 minutes, 36 minutes in a fast-paced game against one of the worst defenses in basketball. I know it's not the Lakers again, but it's a terrible defense. In that Lakers game where he scored 50 DK points, he only shot about 30% from the field. If he shoots a little bit better, he hits 60. He was getting assists, 30% usage, almost 40 minutes of action in a high-paced game. I know he's overpriced, but on this slate, I have no problem going with him.
Alrighty, Dennis Smith Jr. has been great since becoming a Knick 2 weeks ago. He's already become the team's highest priced fantasy player. Julian, please chase or fade. He'll be the highest scoring Knick tonight in terms of fantasy points.
Yeah, I think he definitely has the best shot of being the highest scoring Knick. I just don't think he'll be the best point per dollar Knick on this slate. So I think Smith Jr. is priced very accordingly. He definitely has a good matchup against the Hawks, especially if Trae Young is going to be seeing more minutes. Trae Young's lack of size, he's not that great defensively, gives DSJ a little bit better of a matchup. But just in terms of, price per dollar, Kadeem Allen's been playing a ton of minutes at $4,200. He looks really good kind of in that combo guard spot. Mitchell Robinson has been getting a lot of minutes up front at $4,100. He's got 26 or more DraftKings points in 5 straight games, including over 45 just last night against Philadelphia. So I think there are better values on the Knicks. But yes, Dennis Smith Jr. will be the highest scoring individual.
Yeah, Pierce, he's got contributions across the board here since becoming a Knick. So what do you think?
I think we need to pump the brakes on this.
Okay.
I mean, why do we all of a sudden love Dennis Smith Jr.? When he was with the Mavericks, no one cared about Dennis Smith Jr. He's still the same basketball player. Maybe he's in a better situation, but as Julian mentioned, he's probably not going to get a good point per dollar return because in every game with the Knicks, he's never been the best point per dollar performer in any of those games. He doesn't shoot very well. It just blows me away that we love him so much. Now, on this small slate, sure, you can play him, but we really need to chill out with talking about Dennis Smith Jr. every single night on here.
Hey, do we need to pump the brakes on talking about Dennis Smith Jr., Garion?
Yes, we do. He's been awful his last 3 games. It's hard to even verbalize how terrible he's been his last 3 games. And Fizdale, too, is a massive problem with this question. I mean, he's gone from playing 40 minutes one night to 24 minutes in their last game against Philadelphia. David Fizdale has the strangest, most random rotations of maybe any coach in the NBA at this point. So there's a lot working against him, and he's been awful. He's been so bad since they got to New York. He and DeAndre Jordan, who is the one guy to answer this question, who could probably just outscore him in raw fantasy points. Not that either is probably going to hit dollar per value on this slate. He's been less efficient by DraftKings points per minute than DeAndre Jordan, and he's only scoring 0.91 points per possession. That's worse than Mario Hezonja in that same 6-game span.
Whoa.
He's bad. Don't use him.
Wow. Okay, a lot of emotion there. But more importantly, our first rose of the night goes to
Who?
Pierce.
Pierce!
Way to earn it, big guy. You showed us your vulnerability, a lot of emotion in your takes. I really like that.
Pizza
Seriously,
take.
don't buy
Pizza
that
take,
pizza.
so
Don't
you've
buy
earned
the
it.
pizza.
Hey, don't be jealous, guys. There's a lot more to
I
come. Don't
will
worry.
remember that.
Yeah.
I have to come up with a new Valentine's Day gift now.
Yes, you do, you little chocolate animal. You've been eating it
We're
all
going to
day in the
overnight this,
offices.
Pierce, by the way. That's what we do here.
Yes, we will. Look, stand by for that, Pierce. Jules and Gary, though, you will have another chance to take home a coveted DK Rose when we talk over-under with you. But first, I'm going to ask Reid some very important questions about golf. Want to see the finals like never before? Of course you do. Well, DraftKings has partnered with Netflix's newest film, Triple Frontier, to bring you an exclusive All-Star Game Showdown contest with one of our most exciting prizes ever. But this is not your ordinary showdown, people. This is a league showdown where you will need some help from your brotherhood, just like the film's Brotherhood, starring Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal. Now, you're going to start by creating a 5-person league on DraftKings and recruit your most trustworthy accomplices to take on the challenge with you. DraftKings will drop the free-to-play NBA All-Star Showdown contest into all active leagues. Your Brotherhood's mission is to have the best combined score across all leagues in the All-Star Game Showdown. And if your crew manages to complete this task, the payoff will be mighty. The winning league will be rewarded with a VIP, all-expenses-paid trip to the finals in June for all members of their Brotherhood, courtesy of the Netflix film Triple Frontier. So, do you have what it takes to seize the jackpot? Choose your crew and your lineups wisely, and you just may be headed to the finals. And don't forget, catch Triple Frontier starring Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal. Available on Netflix March 13th. This is not the same shirt, by the way, that I was just wearing. This is a light
the other
blue.
Shirt. No, it is.
The good news is the Genesis Open started today. The bad news is the Genesis Open started today because Mother Nature was pissed. An absolute mess. Play started, then stopped. PGA Tour will reset all the scores once play resumes, which I believe it has. So
Yep.
since you are a golf guy, you are here alone with me. Congratulations. We're going to call this segment Read the Green.
There we go. Finally, I've made it.
The green. You have made it. You don't have your open yet, but
know.
we'll
Come on,
get
Brad.
Billy on it here shortly. Question 1, what is the status right now of this tournament? Where are we in terms of play? Please tell me.
Yeah, so in terms of the play, obviously the course is completely wet, drenched. The greenskeepers obviously did a good job of getting all the moisture off, but again, it's a soft course. We saw it at Pebble Beach, right, when that rain, the hail came down. You want to see these guys, longer hitters, obviously. We talked about it earlier, driver-heavy course. Now it's going to be even longer. It played just over 7,300 yards. Now you think there's not going to be that extra 10 to 15 yards of rollout on their drive. So in terms of pace of play, in terms of play right now, it's going to be slow. We saw the guys that went out early this morning at 7 go out at 4:40 our time here in Eastern, so 1:40 local over there. And it's going to be a long time. We're probably going to finish on Monday like we did last week at Pebble.
All right, weather is definitely a factor here. It was last week as well. Who are the best weather players, if that's even a thing, Reid?
Yeah, so when you look at like the best either cold weather, rain, you're looking at the European golfers or guys who do well on coastal courses. So again, a guy like Spieth, Patrick Reid, Rory McIlroy, these are guys who do really well in strokes gained. Paul Casey is another guy, right, that do well in strokes gained in the rain. We see that a lot overseas. Again, it could be obviously where they grew up and how they played growing up, that they're used to the conditions. A lot of guys, too, that if they don't necessarily like playing in cold weather or rain, obviously you have to put on more layers. You have to wear maybe 2 gloves, maybe gloves because you're not used to playing in 70, 65-degree weather, which sounds crazy up here. That's something that you're going to have to worry about, right? So, guys, I like the Euro guys. I think we'll talk about a little bit later on who I like in terms of strokes gained. But a guy like Spieth, someone that we didn't necessarily like coming into it, could have some advantage over the field this week.
Just shreds up the course, huh?
Yeah.
Silver lining, though, to a restart is the contest started, and now we can see ownership numbers. So who are the top known golfers, and did this coincide with your predictions? Please toot your own horn for me right now.
Yeah, so again, top for GPPs only. So cash obviously is completely different. So you have like Hadwin at 22%, someone that I wasn't necessarily high on to begin with, but he's there at 22%. Obviously did well last year. Bryson 20%. Right, a lot of drama coming into this. Maybe not necessarily doing well on the West Coast swing in history or in his career history. He's at 20%. Xander's at 20%. Finau obviously is at around 18 to 20%. We saw him do well. So those guys are the top there. Cam Smith 20%. Kokrak, right, a guy who is cheap. He was in the the 7K range. He's at 17%, and it looks like he's doing well. He's at -2.
Couple birdies for him.
Couple birdies,
off the start,
yeah.
right?
So he got a birdie on number 2, which he didn't the first time around. So the guys who own Kokrak, and there was this this Twitter outburst that Kokrak was in the league and now in the lead, and then obviously they had to restart.
Yeah, I remember how excited you were earlier today when you saw that because you have rostered him.
I've rostered him, but 17%,
We all know that.
and I was around that one. So.
I do know you were on Hideki, Rahm, and no surprise here, Tony Finau. Does this reset change your mind?
Not much. I mean, Rahm's a little scary, obviously, because we can see that his emotions can get the best of him. So obviously with inclement weather, with a lot of moisture on the course, and this heavy Kikuyu rough, if he hits it a little bit like wayward off the tee and he gets a bad lie, for instance, he maybe gets some standing water, it's probably lift clean in place, but not in the rough. If he gets one of those bad lies and he doesn't do well in a hole, we see that this type of weather can get under the skin of some guys. I mean, obviously Phil Mickelson, who does well in rain. So Rahm is a little scary, but still, you want these bombers, right? You don't necessarily want these guys who are going to use their short game to gain strokes on the long hitters. So you're going to want the bombers.
All right, same question with a little twist. Who are the guys you were low on that could place higher in these conditions?
Great question, Emerson.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
you wrote them.
Absolutely. So Paul Casey. Paul Casey was a guy that I wasn't necessarily high on, especially because of his distance, strong on the par 5s. Obviously, that first hole is one of the easier par 5s that guys can obviously get birdie or better. So Paul Casey coming at 10%, and so he would have been a nice pivot off of the Tommy Fleetwoods, who came in at around 20%, the Finaus. So Paul Casey is someone, he's 8th since 2014 in strokes gained in the rain against the field. So again, this guy obviously growing up overseas in Europe and playing over in Europe has probably given him the experience to do well in the green. 8th in strokes gained total in the rain over the last 3 or 4 years.
Great job, Reid. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that right there is Reid the Green. Maybe our graphics guy, Billy, he does hella good work. We got to get an open for him here, guys. But no, come on, man. We love this guy. By the way, here is your rose. You have earned it. You're the only analyst here for this segment. You want to talk hockey with Chris Wassel next?
I do. I really do.
All right, good stuff. Quick break and we're back.
Tyler Selvin here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash, and it looks like Flacco will be a Bronco. Baltimore and Denver will complete the trade when the new league year begins on March 13th, and now it leaves us to wonder what this means for the other Super Bowl MVP on the market in Nick Foles. With Denver no longer being an option, two teams have emerged in the hunt for the former Eagles QB. According to a report from the NFL Network, the Jacksonville Jaguars and Foles have mutual interest in joining forces, while NJ.com says that Foles would probably be interested in signing with Philly's NFC East rival in the New York Giants. Foles' play during the 2017 season is the stuff of legends, as he was able to take over the Eagles offense after Carson Wentz went down with an injury and took them to their first Super Bowl championship in franchise history. He came close to pulling another rabbit out of his hat this year, taking the Eagles to the divisional round. In 7 games played for Philly this season, including those playoffs, Foles was able to throw for 1,880 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And whether it's through a trade or free agency, it looks like Foles' magic will have a new home in 2019.
Very interesting. Look, Foles is going to be a hot topic this offseason. Words that I never thought I would mutter, that Foles would be a hot topic in the offseason.
He will be a Jaguar, and the Jaguars will be returning to the AFC Championship game next year.
Because of Nick Foles. Moving on to hockey right about now, and there's no better time to introduce the one and only Chris Wassel of Awesemo.com.
What's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, guys.
Good.
Nice, big, meaty, juicy slate.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, it is, and that's why we have you here. So let's please dive in. All right, we got Tears of Joy, Chris, and the millions and millions of fans around the world. Your fans, our fans, need your help tonight. Yes, we're talking Tears contest.
Yep, so let's get started here at the top in Tier 1. We have Patrick
Kane.
Thank you. Alex Ovechkin, Brent Burns, and Cam Atkinson. Who are you taking here? So which Tier 1 guy would be your choice?
It's a no-brainer. It's Patrick Kane. Look, he had 4 points against New Jersey in the last meeting, which if anybody saw that game looking for defense, you just wanted to burn it before watching. That 8-5 game probably set back defensive hockey about 20 or 30 years. So, look, the Devils are banged up. No Taylor Hall. Looks like no Miles Wood. No Blake Coleman. No clue defensively. No coaching help. And Corey Schneider hasn't won in over a year. So there's kind of a recipe here. Oh, by the way, the last time Patrick Kane went up against the Devils, not only the 4 points, he also hit 2 posts in the first period. So he actually could have had 4 goals and 2 assists.
All right, Chris, so in terms of, we got your best, who would be your last choice in this tier as well?
As much as it pains me, I like the way Cam Atkinson plays, but tonight, and especially in this tier's format, I want to stay away from him a little bit, just because, say, a guy like Brent Burns has more. The other guys just simply have more upside, including Brent Burns, especially, who is in a good matchup tonight. San Jose every night seems to be a good matchup of late, and the longer Erik Karlsson doesn't play, the better it is for Brent Burns.
Tier 2 has Nikita Kucherov, Austin Matthews, Johnny Gaudreau, John Tavares. You going with your favorite here, Gaudreau, or somebody else?
He's definitely going with Gaudreau.
Surprise.
What?
Not go. As much as we like to go with Johnny Hockey, we have a Jersey boy theme out here on the show a little bit. We went with Kevin Boyle last night, and it worked somehow by a miracle, but not tonight. Nikita Kucherov, a little bit underpriced on DraftKings the past 2 out of 3 big slates. Worth a shot, especially for a team that averages over 4.2 goals a game at home. And look, when you're going up against a team that easily allows well over 3 goals a game and has a poor penalty kill, it makes for a very easy decision, along with some guy named Braden Point as well.
All right, jumping down to Tier 7, Emerson's working class tier.
Man of working class.
Who do you like most here in Tier 7, Chris?
It's funny because, when you look at the tiers contest, and people won't realize this, you can pick any player from Tier 7, which is nice. And most of these guys, actually, if you look up at their DraftKings price, you go, well, they're pretty high. But for this format, it's lower because of the select amount of players. surprisingly enough, I went with the guy that shoots the puck a ton. And that would be none other than Brendan Gallagher, who has points in his last 2 games and has generated a whopping 8 scoring chances. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay.
Oh, yeah, the good news is anyone who plays these tiers contests, you guys know, salaries aren't involved. Just pick a guy from the tier. It's super easy. Tell your friends and family and everyone to play. It's super fun and easy. Even I can do it. Finally, tier 8. Who's your pick?
Okay, well, because I screwed this up and gave you the tier 8 pick, I'm just going to go and give you the tier 7
okay,
shot.
cool. No, that's great. We're
The tier
following
7 shot of the night is one of my favorites. All or nothing risk, but if he hits, look, Vegas has had a tough time at home lately. They lost to Arizona at home.
Yeah.
That's how rough it's been for Vegas of late at home. I'm going to go with none other than Mitch Marner, or as I like to call him, the wingman of either Tavares or Matthews. Depends on Mike Babcock's mood. Either way, a guy that can get you a couple assists, 4 to 6 shots on goal some nights. And against that Vegas defense, which, look, everybody's said this all along throughout the season, they are slow in their depth pairings. You can attack very easily if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Last but certainly not least, who's your slate-approved pick?
Guys, if I didn't go with Patrick Kane tonight, I'd revoke my DFS card.
Okay, wow, you better go with him.
There's simply no doubt about it tonight.
Patrick Kane. All right. Very nice. Okay.
Good stuff, Chris. Well,
More importantly, right?
yes, more importantly, congratulations, because you are here for the right reasons. You have earned a DK Rose tonight.
Nice.
There we go. See, at least someone is appreciative.
Yeah.
You know, the other guys just want it for the fame and the glory. Chris actually appreciates
Again,
it.
he's here for the right reasons.
Right. Thanks, Chris. Have a great evening. We got our NBA panel coming back with some game totals of over-under as well as players. So stick around.
I'm Carolyn Azak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Lakers did their best to pry Anthony Davis from the Pelicans before the NBA trade deadline, and while no one can fault them for trying, how they went about it may have caused some problems. According to a report from Sports Illustrated's Chris Mannix, the public pressure LA put on New Orleans to get a deal done may have hurt their chances. Mannix says, handled quietly, the Pelicans might have been more open to dealing with the Lakers. Between Davis trying to bully his way out of New Orleans and his agent also representing LeBron James, there was just too much drama for the Pelicans to deal with. Not to mention all of the tampering accusations thrown at Lakers president Magic Johnson recently. So Davis remains in limbo with New Orleans. They can't shut him down completely in fear of being fined by the NBA, and they can't play him enough to win games in fear of damaging their most important asset. Now the question is, will the way the Lakers handled this affect negotiations between the two teams this summer? We'll just have to wait and see.
All right, if I could spend an entire segment on my rec league stats and how I shred the post at the YMCA and how I've also offered to buy Reid new shoes so he could come play with me, I would. But we have to talk about the guys who can get paid, who actually do get paid to play, and we're going to need our NBA experts back on the screen for some NBA over-under. Welcome back. DK Live, Julian Edlow, Pierce Dietrich, Garion Thorne.
And I heard Pierce was a little slighted that we're giving out other roses to the guys. So be calm, Pierce. You have another chance in this round. We muted you because, you know, I have to explain myself. Is that we're going to give you another chance. There are another rose. So just take it easy. But we absolutely need your help if these game or player totals go over or under their predictions. So first up, the Hornets and Magic have the lowest total on DK Sportsbook tonight, 213.5 to be exact. Do you see that going over or under, Julian?
Yeah, I'll actually take the over here. And the Magic generally haven't been a team that we've done that with this year. They've been more of a defensive team, but they have been sped up lately. They've been a really hot team. They've been playing really well lately. Outside of the road win that they got in Milwaukee, the Magic's team total is 118 at New Orleans. The Pelicans, obviously, we mentioned, lost huge in that game, so the game didn't go over. But 124 in Atlanta, 122 against Minnesota. So they have some really high-scoring games, and Charlotte's a little banged up last game before the break. I think that this number's a little bit too low.
Gary, and the odds have you as a front runner to get the rose in this segment, but what do you think here for over-under?
Well, what's a rose without a thorn, right?
Ooh, see,
yeah,
those kind
girl.
of jokes, man. That's exactly
There we go.
right. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, smart and intelligent. Okay.
I really do want to agree with Julian on this one, honestly. Like, anytime I see a number this low, I'm generally inclined to just blindly bet the over. But the last 10 games, Orlando's defense has been fantastic. Only Milwaukee's got a better defensive rating in that span of time. And as Julian correctly mentioned, Orlando is a team that has sped up recently, but Charlotte is the kind of team that can slow them down. Only Memphis has run at a slower pace than the Hornets over that same 10-game span. So good defense, slow pace. I'm going to take an ugly game and just say the under here.
All right, Pierce, what do you got?
I'm going to go with the over. The Magic have been playing good defense, as we mentioned earlier, but they're also scoring. But I just don't see them stopping the Hornets. The streak is at 13. Kemba Walker owns these guys. They're going to go in, and they're going to get their points. The Magic are going to score. The Hornets are going to score. It's going to go over.
Kemba Walker's over-under is set at 28.5 points. What are the chances the Magic hold him to the under, Garion?
Even though I like the under for the game total, I'll still have to take the over here with Kemba. I mean, he's just shooting too much. There's way too much volume to ignore. He's taken at least 22 shots in 5 straight games. He's taken 11.5 threes per game across his last 6. I mean, Orlando, they're a team that doesn't give up a lot of opponent free throws, which is a nice little way for Kemba to get 5, 6, 7, 8 points. But he's just taking too many threes. The math works to the over here.
What do you think here, Pierce? He is the 4th highest priced player on tonight's slate. It's only a 3-game slate.
I like Kemba a lot. Blew out the Magic in both games, scored over 24 fantasy points, didn't even get on the court in the 4th quarter. That's how out of hand it got. Easily scored on all these guys. He's playing really well since Cody Zeller's been back. The pick and roll is back. You really can't run the pick and roll with Biyombo or Willie Hernan-Gomez. We were all worried about what's wrong with Kemba. It was nothing. They just needed Zeller in there to open the offense back up. And since Zeller's been back, Kemba has been on fire. Also, who's going to guard him? DJ Augustine, he's like ranked the 70th in DRPM for point guards. He's terrible.
All right, I'm looking at his game totals here. He has hit over like 28.5. Let's see.
5 straight games, Emerson.
Thank you,
The
Jules.
analysts know the numbers. That's why you come to me, and I tell you that I'm also taking the over because I've done my research here. I like the over in the game, I already said. He's gone over 30 points in 5 straight games. He averaged only 25 points in the 2 matchups against Orlando this season, but as Pierce said, those games were blowouts. He didn't even have to see the floor late. He got all that production in 3 quarters. So the Magic are playing really well right now. I already said earlier in the show, I think they win this game, but it's going to be a competitive game that goes late. A lot of scoring chances for Kemba.
Looks like someone's a little thwart.
We can go back to
me
talking
have
about
my
your
time
Y
to
League at the
shine.
end of the segment or something, and
Well,
you'll be
something's
happy
a little
about
emotional.
that.
He didn't
Don't
get
think
first
Julian's getting a rose.
No, I don't
No,
know.
that's going to be a hell no.
Yeah.
I don't have any fancy heart-shaped pizza stories. My last name has nothing to do with Valentine's Day. It's not
That's
looking
because
good.
you are just a miserable person.
Okay.
Reid,
Yeah, okay, the next one here. That's a perfect segue here. The Knicks and the Hawks total is set at 225.5. These are 2 of the league's worst offenses. Do you think this is an easy under, Pierce?
Boy, it's close. You look at the Knicks' last 15 games, 11 times they've gone under. You look at the last 15 games for the Hawks, 10 times they've gone over. Something has got to give. I say they go under because the Knicks are just that bad. The Knicks will find a way, and we've already talked about Fizdale being a terrible coach, putting the wrong people on the court at the wrong time, just not scoring points. It doesn't matter if it's paced up. The Knicks are going to find a way not to score points.
Julian, you've put Emerson on tilt, but what do you think? Oh,
Sorry, I was just smelling these dozen roses I have right
oh, sorry. Sorry, Julian. I'm just smelling, I believe, the 16 flowers I have for my wife. I believe you only have 6 in there,
Okay,
buddy.
back to the question. What do you think, Joel?
You didn't even buy those flowers. I will tell her about that.
What do you
What's
think?
the question?
What do you think over under here?
The
research.
Knicks and
Do your
Hawks. The Knicks and Hawks are
Atlanta.
going over. This is too low. The Hawks have been letting up a ton of points. They've been one of the worst defenses and fastest paced teams all season. We just saw how out of hand that Lakers game got. And what are the Knicks going to slow them down? No, they're just going to keep running with them. This is going to be a sloppy game, but a sloppy over, I guess.
Garion, front runner here for the Rose. What do you think?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the people have spoken.
I think I'm like a closet Hawks fan, and this was slander when I read this question that the Hawks are one of the worst offenses in basketball. Not since they got healthy, they're not. This team is great. I love them. Knicks are garbage, though, so that's why I'm going to take the under here. They've only averaged 97 points per game across their last 11. That's a lot of burden on the Hawks' shoulders to get to this number. I just don't trust the Knicks.
Does not trust the Knicks.
All right, John Collins, the pride of Cardinal Newman High School in West Palm Beach, Florida, has an over-under set at a steep 19.5 points. Julian, where are you going? Where's he going?
Yeah, I mean, given that this is the Knicks and they are really bad in the front court, even with DeAndre Jordan now starting at center, I think I'm going to lean with the over here. He scored 17 points in his first game against the Knicks this season, but Collins is a guy that's been playing really well on the whole. He's scored 21 or over in 2 of his last 3 games. So I just think this is a spot where I like the over in the game and I like the matchup in the front court for Collins. I don't necessarily think at 7,700 he's easy to fit in your roster on this slate, but I like the over for his point total.
You like the over here, Garion?
No, I'll take the under in this one. I mean, actually, since DeAndre Jordan showed up in New York, they've gone from one of the worst interior defensive teams to, again, small sample, just 6 games, but actually one of the best. They're only giving up 15.8 made opponent field goals inside the restricted area across that span of time. That's the 3rd fewest in all of basketball, and they're giving them up at a pretty low efficiency as well, just around 57%. So I'm going to say under here. I think the Knicks actually have improved in an area with DeAndre Jordan.
Pierce, we got an over, we got an under. Where are you going?
I don't know what Garion is looking at because I'm looking at the last week for the Knicks, and they're allowing 66 fantasy points to opposing centers. That's the 2nd worst in basketball.
Well,
It must be all rebounds.
That's the restricted area.
Yeah, and the 6th worst of power forwards. Getting DeAndre Jordan, as you would probably imagine, has not helped their defense at all. I think this number's too low. I think it's easy for Collins. Bad defense, paced up game. He should be fine.
Garion, fantastic work. You are the first Canadian to take home a rose tonight. Your takes were smart, they were educated, and you did not attack me. And for that,
I humbly accept.
we appreciate you. Jules, your time to shine. We'll be in Showdown Picks coming up. I can feel it. Until then, go easy on the chocolate in the break room, buddy. He's like the little German kid from The Simpsons.
You told me to bring you some.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why there was so much.
That is 100% true. But we got Steve Buchanan coming up next to talk some baseball. I'm sure he's going to have some hot takes about this entire show. But first, to take a gander at NASCAR's price check with Pierce Dietrich. Take a look.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Daytona. Whose salary jumped up this week? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Average salary last year of $7,300 up to $9,800. Welcome to another season of disparaging Ricky Stenhouse. In his defense, he is good at the plate tracks. Daniel Suarez, $7,500 up to $8,400. He gets the bump joining SHR this year, but he was on JGR last year, and that team didn't help him at all either. Clint Boyer, $9,000 up to $9,900. Stuart Haas Racing just bullied the field last year at Talladega. If this team hooks up again, they could crush the scoreboard with laps led points. Whose salary dropped this week? Kyle Larson. Average salary last year of $10,200. He's down to $7,800. He won the Daytona Xfinity race last year. We think of him as a dirt racer, but he's just a racer. He can win anywhere. Martin Truex Jr. average salary $10,700. He's down to $8,800. He wrecked in the Clash, but 75% of the field wrecked in the Clash. He almost won the Daytona Summer Race last year. Kyle Busch, $11,200 down to $9,600. If you watch the Clash, then you saw the leader got wrecked at the end, and that's what I want. I want the dirty drivers that are going to wreck the leader. Favorite play of the week? Joey Logano, $10,400. He is the leader of Team Dirtball several times over his career. He has wrecked the leader for the win. By the way, 4 plate racing wins. Eric Almirola, $9,200. Statistically, he is the best plate racer in NASCAR over the last 2 years, and it's not even close. By the way, the Fords look like they have the cars to beat at the plate tracks once again. All right, guys, check out the DK Playbook for your DFS information and needs. If you've got NASCAR questions, hit me up on Twitter at RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
Oh, yes, love is in the air, but so is the flu, and the crack of the bat will soon follow because it's spring training, which means baseball season is here. And we have our main man, Steve Buchanan, joining us to talk about it.
Yes, he's very excited. I believe the correct word is amped. What we saw on Twitter here from
Good
Steve.
stuff, Steve.
Yeah, so it's a special edition of MLB High or Low. So should the following numbers be higher or lower here? So simple enough for both of us to understand. The Yankees are tied with the Red Sox and the Astros at plus 650 to win the World Series this season. So should the odds for New York be higher or lower, Steve? What do you think?
Well, first of all, if I don't get a roast here, that's really messed up. It's just me, so that's going to be impossible.
Well,
if I don't
okay.
get
I
one.
mean,
You need to prove yourself here,
exactly. Or
Bukes.
you can't attack this guy. We clearly know that he's on an emotional roller coaster from Jules.
I'll attack whoever I want, Reid. Calm down. Look, I think this is going to be lower for the Yankees. I mean, when you look at the offenses here, all three teams have stellar offenses. There's no doubt about that. But what really separates the Yankees here from both of these teams is their bullpen. I mean, they honestly might have one of the best bullpens, at least on paper right now. On any given night, they can pull any of their starters after going 5 innings, and you can see a combination of Ottavino, Britton, Betances, Green, and Chapman. I mean, it's just absolutely filthy what they can run out there on a nightly basis. So for that reason alone, I think the Yankees should be lower here. There's no bullpen that can even come close to what they have, and I just think it's a little bit crazy that they're tied right now. Granted, if injuries come through or anything like that, that's always something you'd be afraid of. But man, the Yankees bullpen is just so good.
Steven, the Phillies have the best odds of any team that did not make the playoffs last season. Should their odds to win it all be higher or lower than 1,200, plus 1,200?
I mean, obviously, Bryce Harper is going to make a big difference. You know, obviously his name's been connected to the Phillies almost all offseason long. So obviously if he lands with the Phillies, that's going to change a lot. But with that being said, it's just still not enough for me to make them think that they're going to go all the way to the World Series. You look at their starting rotation, it's just not strong enough behind Aaron Nola. I mean, Jake Arrieta just had the knee surgery. You know, he didn't look as great last year. Then it goes Nick Pivetta, Zach Eflin, Vincent Velasquez. I mean, at least two of those guys have to make some huge strides to really keep them in contention, I think. They have a really good offense. They've made some really good offseason moves to help improve the power on the team, especially. But when you look at like the 6 through 9 hitters, they're brutal down at the bottom of their lineup there as well. So I don't think they have enough pieces for this. I'm not a big fan of these odds right now. I just don't think it's enough that I'd even want to place any money on that right now. So I'm not a big fan of those odds.
All right, maybe he's a better fan of this number here. The Dodgers have a plus 375 odds to make it back to the World Series. Should those odds be higher or lower, Steve?
Yeah, here's my thing here. When you look out at the NL West, it's really going to be two teams that are going to be fighting for. It's going to be the Dodgers or the Rockies. And, you know, the Dodgers have had health issues, as we saw last season. They're going to get a lot of those guys back. They can get a full season from Seager, from Turner. Obviously, it's going to make a huge difference, but the Rockies' rotation last year, man, they really were impressive, and I think they could be serious contenders. One team I think is not getting enough love, though, is the Cardinals. They made the acquisition of getting Paul Goldschmidt over the offseason. I think that's really going to push them over the edge there, and I think their rotation is a bit underrated as well. We look at their, 1 through 5. Obviously, there's a couple of questions near the back end, but I really like the front end of that rotation there. And with, like I said, with Goldschmidt, bring some serious power to that team. We saw Goldschmidt do so well on the road. He faltered a lot at Chase Field in Arizona. So if he's going to do well on the road, you think maybe he'd do well at Busch Stadium and everywhere else that he has to go. So if anything, I actually like the Cardinals as a dark horse team for this year. The Dodgers are definitely not high on my list, though.
How about the Orioles? They were just horrific last year. 47 wins, which means a bajillion losses. DK Sportsbook has set their win total at 57.5. Should that number be higher or lower?
Wow, generous. If you can take lower on this one by, now I would definitely do that. Look at that rotation that they're going to be running out there. Dylan Bundy, Andrew Kashner, Cobb, Hess, Ramirez. Like, that's abysmal. Then you go through their lineup 1 through 9. I legitimately can't project any of those batters to have over 300 batting average by the time the season is over. They're just not going to win many games. And now, for this season, we're going to give them plus 10 wins from last year? No.
I don't think
Stop it. Nope, not going to happen. This is going to be, if you're a Baltimore fan, be excited for the Ravens. That's about all you got right now.
Yeah, being sorry for the Flacco-less Ravens there from Steve Buchanan. So if you want to attack him, do it on Twitter there. He loves it. So the AL Central featured only one team above 500 last season, the Cleveland Indians, who won their division by 13 games. They're at minus 155 to win it all, or to win it again this year. Should those odds be higher or lower, Steve?
One of the people that I think is all right in life is Garion. And what Garion has said in the past...
Hey, he loves you, man.
He's an all right cat.
Yeah.
But one thing that he's pointed out, and I couldn't agree with him more, is that the Indians aren't the same team as they were last season. I think the expectation for them is just a bit too high. But when you look at the division that they're in, it's hard not to like them to win that division. But one team that really is going to give them a run for their money is the Twins. They have made so many good moves in this offseason to really improve that their starting nine. I mean, they have Nelson Cruz now, CJ Cron, Jonathan Scope. I mean, that is some legitimate power that they're adding to that lineup. The starting rotation has some question marks. That definitely is going to be an area I think they're going to struggle in. But let's not forget, the Indians no longer have Donaldson. They no longer have Encarnacion. So the rotation is fantastic. Obviously, the Indians can boast that 1 through 5. They're absolutely fantastic. So I think they absolutely still have the best chances to win the division. But I think the Twins are going to be nipping at the heels there. They're a lot better team than I think people are giving them credit for. And when the season comes to a close, they're going to be right there in contention.
Okay. Last one here, Bukes. The Braves won the NL East last season, but only have the 4th best odds to win it this year. Should their odds to win the division be higher or lower than plus 300?
I don't know what I'm missing here.
Yeah,
their lineup is absolutely stellar. They have Donaldson now. They're the team that landed Donaldson. They have Freeman, Acuna, Albies, Markakis, if he can sustain that, weird season from last year. But the rotation is what hurts them. And I think that's what's kind of giving them the lower odds there. But really, there's no other team aside the Nationals that really have a rotation that scares you. So I think it's got to be the Braves. They have enough young talent. I think they're going to be another, in the contention all season long. Again, really the Nationals could be the only one that could give them a run for their money. They could still end up landing Bryce Harper as well. They're still in the mix there, but their lineup isn't as impressive as it was last year. We'll see what their rotation can do. It's obviously better than the Braves, but I think the Braves are here to take it.
All right, Steve, we do have a bonus question for you. Should Julian's odds be higher or lower than minus 300 to beat you in a charity boxing match?
Oh my God. I mean, look, I might not look like this tough guy, but I would knock Julian the hell out. I mean, this is not even a question, okay? He's always running.
Odds makers are very smart, Steve. There's a reason it's set at minus 300.
Yeah, well, you're an idiot, so.
Okay.
Well, in lieu of that, bringing Julian in here, we got 2 guys who could earn a rose in this segment. That's our selfish way for doing this. But Steve, for that hot take, especially in Minnesota Dark Horse, you have earned a super sweaty rose. Congratulations, bud.
What an honor. Thank you so much, Reid. If you're a bird, I'm a bird.
Steve, I would like to say Julian wanted me to give you the rose, or give him the rose, rather, in this segment. So, yeah.
I think I earned it.
He's always plotting something.
Yep.
All right, Jules, we'll see if you can actually do it coming up. We'll see who earns that last rose of the night. I don't know if it's going to be Julian. We'll have to see. NBA Showdown picks from Jules, Pierce, and Gary are after this.
Main event. The return of Cain Velasquez. He's 9,000 on DraftKings and a minus 165 favorite. Francis Ngannou is 7,200 and plus 145. Cain's been off for 2.5 years. The odds makers opened the line at around like minus 300. And there's been a lot of steam on my boy Frankie Murder. I can't blame anybody for wanting Velasquez to bet Velasquez in this spot at this point. I can understand. You know where my heart lies, so it's not too far in our distant memories of what happened when we took on a wrestler like Stipe Miocic. He was able to take him down.
Less than 12 months ago.
Take him down, beat him up, grind him. It's in everyone's mind. It's there. And I imagine he hasn't been able to close those gaps, especially training out of France for this entire camp. That being said, last time Cain fought, it was Travis Brown.
Yeah, UFC 200.
And he came in, he had a bunch of new little tricks. He was doing spinning shit and
he's fast on his feet, man.
He's fast on his feet. If he doesn't come in and just shoot for a takedown immediately, he is playing a dangerous game against Frankie Murder, and you know that's true.
I know. No. Listen. I know it's true, but the thing with Cain Velasquez is, I think a lot of people think this could go just like that first JDS fight, where he gets clocked a minute into the first round and he topples over. But look at the other JDS fights. This guy's a fantastic striker because he has a good pressure game. He just lines you up against the cage and just keeps pounding on you. And even though he would be playing with fire, and it would be a very bad idea, I don't think he's above tiring out Francis Ngannou maybe in later rounds and going after that standing TKO, going after those punches and bunches, going after that wearing this guy down if he's in shape. but it's really hard to get a sharp read on this fight because
2.5
we don't really
years.
know.
We don't know what Cain Velasquez is to expect. He could be shot at this point.
No doubt about it. This guy's banged up. Lifetime of wrestling, lifetime of just not only competing at the highest level, but being Daniel Cormier's sparring partner in the gym, being a leader at AKA. It's going to take its toll on you. To put things into real perspective for you, since he lost to Fabricio Verdum and lost his title in that crazy upset that nobody really saw coming because they love Cain so much, Francis Ngannou hadn't even started his UFC career. He's fought 9 times in the span that Cain got that one fight in against Travis Brown. So if ring rust is a thing, it's going to 100% affect Cain Velasquez to the point that maybe he gets Francis down once or twice, 3 times. But Francis, similar to the Stipe fight, is at least going to start every round standing. And potentially, if Cain gets really gassed, and we've seen how sloppy he gets when he gets really gassed, Francis just gets up, then it might be like that Luis Henrique fight. Remember? He gets taken down.
Yeah.
And then when he eventually gets back up, Gasbag Henrique is just completely toast at this point, and then he just touches him up a couple times and puts him down.
But 7,200, yeah, this DraftKings pricing is more equatable to like Cain being a minus 250 favorite on this card rather than the minus 165. There's tons of odds value. That means Ngannou's going to be a very, very, very popular play.
Should be interesting. So you're banking, you're going to back Ngannou. I'm going to take Cain.
Honestly, I love it. I love this fight, and I expect fireworks.
Last block of the show, Jules, Pierce, and Garion are back, which means we are talking NBA. Yes, please be ready, guys. More specifically, showdown picks for tonight's Thunder Pelicans contest.
Look, we talked a little bit about him earlier in the show, but Anthony Davis hasn't been himself lately, maybe because he wanted a DK sponsored rose. Didn't get it. And if we see it here in the pricing, he's the 3rd most expensive tonight, which is, again, kind of weird. Are you playing AD, Jules?
No, because we don't know exactly what he's going to be. He could be a complete bust like he was last game against Orlando when he had less than 17 DK points in 24 minutes. And Paul George is playing like an MVP. Russell Westbrook is getting a triple-double every night. And New Orleans is the type of defense that those guys should continue rolling against. So I don't mind playing the 2 studs from the same team at all.
Pierce, I think I know where you're going with this question, but let's just ask it anyway. AD, what do you think?
Well, honestly, the thing I'm thinking about is I got an NBA lock and a NASCAR lock in about 8 minutes, and that's the only thing running through my head right now.
Wow, you are so popular.
You can't trust him. You just can't. No, don't play him. Even if he plays, he's not getting the minutes to hit the ceiling. He may have a good game that gets 50 fantasy points, and that might work in the showdown, but moving forward, he just is no longer a ceiling play anymore.
So I think Pierce had a number 2 mechanical pencil there, so we know he's official. But Garion, what do you think here, AD?
Yeah, I mean, even if you want to get like uber creative and use Raymond Felton in your captain spot, you still don't have enough money to use Anthony Davis, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. And to be perfectly honest, there's no way I'm using Anthony Davis over Paul George and Russell Westbrook on this slate. It's going to be the popular maneuver. I understand that. And Anthony Davis obviously has a huge ceiling, but no, I'm not using AD tonight.
All right.
The 2 guys above Davis in pricing are, of course, Russell Westbrook and Paul George. If you can only fit one into your lineup, who would you take, Pierce?
Well, you can fit 2. I think we're all going to fit 2 in tonight. And you would be crazy not to put them both in. If you're making me choose at least the guy that wanted my captain spot, which we'll talk about later, it's Paul George. He's just putting up too many real points. He gets rebounds. He gets assists. Now he doesn't get the triple-double. But 40-point games are nothing for him. He reminds me of Larry Bird in a way that he just can nail every shot possible. I love the way that he's shooting. I don't know. He's my favorite player all of a sudden. It's crazy.
That is kind of crazy. Garion, who would you roster out of these 2? I know maybe everyone is going to roster both of them. I don't know. Maybe we'll get to that here in a second. But who do you like?
Well, I'd rather use George in my captain slot, so I guess I prefer him slightly. I just think what he's done so far in February it's insanity. He's got 41 made 3-pointers through 6 games. That's only 1 less than the Suns have as a team in the same span of time. And also, I mean, we're talking about Russell Westbrook, who is 2 years removed from having the highest usage rate in a season in NBA history. Paul George actually has a higher usage rate than Russell Westbrook. Paul George is the one player Russell Westbrook's ever seen and gone, oh, damn, maybe I have to play second fiddle to this guy right now. Like, that's the best testament we can have to Paul George's talent.
Russell Westbrook or Paul George, Julian?
Yeah, so I guess I'll fight the guys a little bit here and try and make the argument for Westbrook, and it's just that he has a safer floor because he is such a triple-double machine. He's done it however many games in a row it is now, 10 or whatever. So Paul George, yeah, he is going to be a great scorer. I guess that with those threes, like Garion said, those have a better chance eventually of reverting to the mean and kind of falling off there than Westbrook's rebounding abilities, or I guess his assist abilities kind of depend on George knocking some shots down, but he's got Steven Adams there in a good matchup against New Orleans as well. So I guess Westbrook maybe just has a safer floor because he does everything and eventually can break out for one of those high-scoring games, and George can start missing some of those shots. But like the guys said, like, we can fit both of these guys, so it doesn't matter. Just play them both.
Well, and George.
Perfect segue, Julian.
And George said that Westbrook a perfect teammate. First time we've heard that in a while here, too. So, perfect segue again. If you do plan on rostering two of the expensive guys, where can you find some value in a cheap player, Garion?
I think a popular one is going to be like Ray Felton, just because, you know, with Dennis Schroeder not being there, we just know he's going to play like 20, 22, 23 minutes. His usage rate has been relatively high, considering that no one can have a high usage rate aside from Paul George and Russell Westbrook on this team. But one guy that I do kind of like who's off the beaten path a little bit, Tim Frazier has kind of just taken Elfrid Payton's combo guard role where he plays 30 minutes a night, splits some time with Drew Holiday as well. And Elfrid Payton's not playing. We know that right now. So I like Tim Frazier at 4-2.
Jules, where are you going here?
Yeah, so I'll actually pivot off of Felton and spend a little bit more money on Deonte Burton for $3,600. Same deal here without Schroeder in the rotation. You're going to have those backup point guard minutes. Deonte Burton played 26 minutes against Portland. He was 7 of 9 from the field for 18 points. He had 3 block shots there, no rebounds or assists, but kind of a weird fantasy line, but he still produced over 25 DK points. I think he's just a younger, fresher player, and if this game gets out of hand at all in favor of the Thunder, I think they'd rather give those minutes to Burton than Felton, so you get a little bit safer blowout factor there, so I just slightly prefer Burton to Felton. And like Gary mentioned, Frazier is a really good value play on the other side since Elfrid Payton's been ruled out of this one.
Yeah, Pierce, we got a couple of guys in that value spot. Where are you going?
Yeah, Burton had a weird line, but his teammate Patrick Patterson also had a strange line in that game. Grant's out of the game as well, so Patterson got almost 20 minutes. And he scored 0 points, but had 7 rebounds and a steal, which is, you got one guy who scores nothing but shots and then gets 3 random blocks, and then one guy can't put the bucket in but gets 7 rebounds. They're both on the board for me, Pat, and Burton, maybe even Felton too, if you're really squeezing some expensive players in at the top.
How about captain spot here? Who would you captain, Pierce?
I'm going to go Paul George, and Julian kind of talked about this. With the three-pointer, it could regress to the mean, or he can just keep hitting them. And I want that three-point bonus, 45 real-life points, and then you throw the rebounds on top of it. I'm going to chase George. I don't want to really play the floor play. I want the ceiling play.
Garion.
Yeah, when we talk about three-point regression, like obviously it's a volatile shot, but this is someone who's been shooting 44% going all the way back to the start of December from beyond the arc. And New Orleans not only gives up opponent three-pointers at the 3rd most efficient clip in 2018-19, they also just give up 12.2 three-pointers to opponents in terms of raw output, which is the 4th most in the NBA. So they don't seem like the kind of team that's going to be the ones to regress Paul George.
Jules?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because George is $1,000 cheaper than Westbrook. So if you're going to play them both, I know that I made the argument for Westbrook, but you can kind of just captain George and it makes it easier to fit the rest of your lineup. But I'll say just a way to change it up is you captain one of those value plays, whoever you like, Patterson, Burton, Felton, and then it maybe allows you to fit a guy like Steven Adams into your lineup as well and go with an OKC stack or something like that. So you can open up room. You can't play all 3 studs, but you can open up enough room maybe to get another solid player in there where you're not playing 4 scrubs.
All right, we're going to just need a name here. So, Pierce, slate approved.
Kimball Walker getting you ready for the All-Star game in Charlotte.
There we go. Garion, what do you think?
Paul George.
Jules?
Russell Westbrook.
All right. Okay.
Gentlemen, Reid, this is the final roast tonight when you're ready.
It's been a journey. This whole show has been a journey, a lot of great experiences here, and if I can take a moment to talk about some of these guys. Look, Gary, we know how good he is with stats, right? His vulnerability, amazing. Pierce with the emotion, telling us
Did we
about
rush
his
our picks
life
for this?
experiences, okay? But what I'm looking
we
at
did.
most here is growth. Growth from start to finish. And if I can get in the center here, Julian has grown the most from start to finish here. His hair looks fantastic. I'm a sucker for good hair. Julian, will you accept this final rose?
This is a pity rose, but since you said my hair looks good, I'll accept the rose.
Hey, Rose.
Pierce, Garion, I'm sorry. Take a moment. Say your goodbyes.
Bye.
Pierce, gone. Doesn't want it?
Take this home to your girlfriend.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Sweat, guys. We're back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Deuces.